The rope creaked like an old door swung open to hell. Dust curled around the wooden platform, thick as smoke, choking the breath from the girl's lungs. Anna Whitlock stood on the gallows with bare feet and a torn white dress that once belonged to her mother, her hands bound in rough hemp. Her mouth was cut, dry, silent, but her eyes, those wild blue eyes, refused to blink. Below her, the townsfolk gathered like wolves. Men with sweat-slick hats and whiskey lips. Women clutched their shawls tighter, not out of modesty, but eagerness, as if the hanging were Sunday theater. A child, too young to know better, clapped at the drumroll of the town's makeshift justice. A man stepped forward. Clem Raleigh, big as a steer and twice as mean. His black vest was stained with dust and blood, his boots polished like bone. Sheriff in title, tyrant in truth. He raised his hand for quiet, though none was needed. The air already held its breath. "This girl," he shouted, voice like gravel soaked in fire, "stands guilty of harboring the enemy, of consorting with the Cheyenne devils who brought sickness into this town, and for aiding in the death of the Miller boy. She is a traitor, a witch, and her soul belongs to the devil." A few murmurs of doubt stirred, but no one spoke. Not out loud. The law was a whisper in this town. Clem was the thunder. Anna looked past him, beyond the gallows, to where the horizon burned gold with the setting sun. She wondered if that would be her last color. She remembered the warmth of her mother's hand, how her father used to lift her onto his shoulders during lightning storms to make her feel like a sky god. They were both gone now. Consumption took Ma. Pa never came back from his last trade run with the railroad men. Then came the sickness. Not from the Cheyenne, but from the settlers themselves. Bad water, bad hearts. She had helped where she could. Herbal poultices from the preacher's wife. A steady hand for fevered children. But when young Eli Miller died in her arms, blue-lipped and burning, it was her name they cursed. The townsfolk wanted someone to blame. And a girl who read books, who spoke kindly to passing Cheyenne hunters, who didn't shrink from the ways of nature. She was easy prey. Anna's gaze drifted to the preacher, standing stone-faced at the edge of the crowd. He looked away. The executioner, face hidden beneath a leather mask, adjusted the knot above her shoulder. The noose smelled of sweat and sap, old hangings and fresh pine. Her legs trembled, not from fear, but fury. She was 17, too young to vote, too old to be forgiven. A crow landed on the crossbeam, caught once. The crowd stilled. Then came the sound. It was distant at first, like thunder behind a canyon wall. Then closer. Hooves. One horse, galloping hard. The executioner paused, looking toward the ridge beyond the churchyard. A black figure cut across the dying light, fast and low like a panther through brush. Clem turned, squinting. What in hell? The rider exploded into the clearing. A Cheyenne warrior, face painted in charcoal streaks, leather cloak rippling behind him. His bow was already drawn. Gasps rose like steam from boiling water. The warrior didn't shout. He didn't warn. He loosed an arrow so fast it whistled like wind. The rope above Anna's head snapped with a twang. She dropped, knees buckling, the crowd shrieking. He was on the platform in seconds, grabbing her by the waist. She tried to push him off, but his grip was iron and warm. Another arrow flew, this time into the sheriff's hat, knocking it clean from his head. Clem fired wildly, cursing, but the warrior had already thrown Anna onto the horse. She screamed as the whirl tipped and the animal thundered beneath her. He swung up behind her in one fluid motion. They were gone in a hail of dust and gunshots. The townspeople shouted, some fired, others ducked. Clem spat blood, rage thick on his tongue. Get the dogs. Saddle the damn horses. Bring her back, and bring that savage's head with her. Anna clung to the mane, gasping, her wrists still bound, her mind still catching up to what her body had just survived. Behind them, the world she knew shrank into a blur of dust and shadows. The warrior said nothing for miles. His horse knew the land like memory, winding through dry creeks, skirting jagged ravines, never slowing. The sun dipped and the sky bled purple. Anna's breath began to even. Her tears dried on her cheeks, though her heart still pounded like war drums. Finally, the horse slowed at a narrow canyon mouth. They slipped into its throat, darkness swallowing them whole. The warrior dismounted and helped her down. She tried to pull away. He raised a single hand, not in threat, but in silence. He cut her bindings with a knife carved from bone. Her arms dropped, stinging with sudden freedom. She rubbed her wrists, staring at him. "Why?" she asked, voice hoarse. He looked at her then, really looked. His eyes were dark and old, older than she could understand. "They would have killed you for breathing," he said, low and graveled. "And I've seen enough of that." Anna sat down hard on the cold rock, her legs finally giving out. Her mind swirled with too many things: firelight faces, her father's voice, the snap of the rope, this stranger with a weapon made of shadows and speed. "Who are you?" she asked. He turned away, checking the canyon mouth, scanning for riders. "Someone who didn't come soon enough last time." She wrapped her arms around herself and stared into the dark. The silence that followed was not empty. It was waiting. A low wind murmured through the canyon, threading whispers between the stone walls like voices of old spirits. The sky above was ink-dark, pierced by stars, and the fire between them cast a flickering light that made shadows dance across the rock. Anna sat wrapped in a blanket too coarse for comfort, her back against the canyon wall, watching the Cheyenne warrior as he moved with silent purpose. He hadn't offered his name. He hadn't asked for hers. He crouched by the fire, sharpening a long, curved knife. The blade gleamed each time the flint kissed it. His face was unreadable, painted in fading streaks of ash and ochre. There was no anger in his eyes, no fear, just a deep and steady focus that unnerved her more than rage would have. Anna broke the silence, if only to hear her own voice. "Do you even know what they were going to do to me?" He didn't look up. "I know what they've done before." She hugged the blanket tighter. The cold had settled in her bones. Or maybe it was just memory clinging to her skin. "I didn't do the things they said." "I believe you." The certainty in his voice made her chest tighten. No one had said that to her before, not the preacher, not the townsfolk, not even herself. "You were just watching?" she asked. "For days," he said. "Waiting." "Why?" He finally raised his eyes. "Because I've seen a rope claim someone it shouldn't. I don't like repeating mistakes." Anna blinked at him, unsure whether to feel gratitude or suspicion. "So you watch people hang, then decide whether or not to step in?" His lips twitched, almost a smile. "Only when the wind changes." She stared at him, trying to understand the shape of the man in front of her. He looked younger in the firelight, no older than 30, but there was a weariness in his posture that belonged to someone much older. His scars, she could see them now, faint lines across his arms, a puckered circle on his collarbone, spoke louder than words. "Did they take someone from you?" she asked. He stopped sharpening. The fire crackled. "My sister. Her name was Cheyenne." He spoke slowly, as if translating pain into language. "She helped a white woman birth her child during winter. The mother died. The town blamed Cheyenne, hung her in the snow." Anna didn't speak. Couldn't. She was 16. He stood then, walked a few paces from a fire, and stared up at the stars. His shadow stretched long behind him. "I was tied to a post. I couldn't move. I still see your feet." She rose, careful not to disturb the stones beneath her. "I'm sorry." "I don't want your sorry," he said, not unkindly. "I want you to live." A distant sound broke the stillness, wheels on gravel maybe, or hooves. He turned his head like a wolf scenting blood. "They'll be close," he muttered. "He won't let this go." "Clem," Anna said. He nodded. "The one who spits before he speaks. He'll come with men and fire." "Then we should run." He gave her a look, sharp, calculating. "No. We should move smart." Before dawn, they were already on the horse again, cutting through the broken plains like ghosts. The wind had teeth. Anna's knuckles turned white from gripping the saddle, and she tried not to think about what would happen if they were caught. By midday, they reached a dry riverbed shaded by cottonwoods. He dismounted and began leading the horse on foot. Anna followed, her feet aching. Every so often he would crouch and press a hand to the ground. "They're riding hard. Maybe 6 or 7. They have dogs." Her stomach twisted. "Can we lose them?" If we want to, he said. But if they catch us. She didn't need the rest of the sentence. They veered off the riverbed and climbed into high ridges where wild grass grew thin and yellow. The sun blazed down. Anna's throat dried to sand. Still, she didn't ask to stop. That evening, they found a crevice between two boulders just wide enough to hide a fire. He caught a jackrabbit with a stone and cleaned it without a word. She watched, fascinated and repulsed. He handed her the meat without ceremony. She hesitated. "I've never eaten something I saw die," she admitted. He said nothing. She chewed slowly, forcing it down. "You're not what I expected. Neither are you." She glanced at him, unsure whether it was an insult or a compliment. "Most people scream longer," he added deadpan. Anna burst into laughter, short, cracked, but real. "You're horrible." He smiled for real this time. Maybe. They sat in a silence that felt less heavy now, watching smoke curl into the sky like a thread between this world and the next. Later, she whispered, "You didn't tell me your name." "Tahsénte," he said. "What does it mean?" "Two bulls fighting." "That sounds complicated." "Life usually is." She leaned back, watching the stars flicker overhead. Somewhere a coyote howled. Her body ached in every place it could ache, but her mind felt oddly still. She dreamed that night of ropes turning into snakes, of hands reaching for her, of fire, of her mother brushing her hair by candlelight and whispering that the world wasn't fair, but that didn't mean it couldn't be beautiful. She woke with tears on her face, and Tahsénte already packed and mounted. "We need to move," he said. The sun hadn't risen yet. The horizon was just beginning to glow. She climbed on behind him, arms wrapped tight around his waist. As they rode, a crow passed overhead, cawing once before disappearing. By the time they saw the smoke, it was too late to turn back. A wagon lay in a ditch, wheels shattered. A man sprawled beside it, face blackened with soot, eyes wide open in a frozen scream. A woman knelt nearby, clutching a child too, still to be sleeping. Anna slid off the horse and staggered toward them. "What happened?" The woman looked up, face streaked with ash and tears. "They came at night. Said we were hiding you. We didn't even know who you were." Anna dropped to her knees. The child had no wounds, just a cold, sunken face. Smoke inhalation. Maybe fear. She touched the girl's forehead. Still warm. Tahsénte stood above them, grim. "Clem was here." "They're coming back," the woman rasped. "They said after they finish what you started." He knelt beside the girl and placed 2 fingers over her eyes. "Close them gently." Anna stood. Her hands shook, fists clenched. "We can't keep running." "He won't stop." Tahsénte nodded slowly. "Then we don't run." "What do we do?" He looked at her with eyes that had seen ropes and fires and sisters swinging in the cold. "We make them remember who we are." The wind picked up then, carrying ash and warning with it. Behind them, the sun finally rose. The wind that morning carried the bitter scent of something burning. Old wood, maybe flesh, maybe dreams. The trail was dry and narrow, carved through a low valley of brittle sage and rust-colored stone. Tahsénte walked ahead, his long rifle slung across his back, every footstep deliberate. Anna followed close behind, heart hammering harder than her boots on the rock. They hadn't spoken since burying the child. Now, silence wasn't just grief, it was purpose. They came upon a flicker of smoke near midday. A single crooked chimney puffed above a row of broken wagons and tattered tents, all set in a shallow basin beside a dying stream. Anna hesitated, eyeing the settlement. It didn't look like much. A few figures moved sluggishly, wrapped in ragged shawls, too slow for threat. Children, maybe. Outcasts. The kind of people nobody counted. Tahsénte crouched, scanning with eyes trained by years of survival. "They're watching. Think they'll talk?" Anna asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "If they don't, their dogs will." They stepped forward slowly, weapons down, hands open. A boy no older than 10 held a rusted rifle like it was made of glass. His face was more bone than skin. From the largest tent emerged a man with a milky eye and a limp. He leaned on a branch that might have once been a crutch, but now served mostly as a warning. "We don't want trouble," he said, voice like dust sliding down a shovel. "We're not here for it. Tahsénte replied. The man squinted. You're the ones Clem Raleigh's gutting the hills for. Anna felt every pair of eyes press into her like iron rods. We need water, Tahsénte said. A few hours rest. Then we're gone. The man didn't answer right away. Finally, he turned and waved them in. They sat in a dim shelter that stank of sweat and pine pitch. A woman with missing teeth handed Anna a tin cup of warm water. It tasted of copper and moss, but it was water. Anna drank deep. Tahsénte kept his back to the canvas wall, every muscle coiled. You're not going to outrun him, the one-eyed man said. He's not chasing you to win. He's chasing you to show the rest of us what happens when you break the chain. We're not trying to be examples, Anna muttered. Too late for that. The man looked at her then, really looked. They called you a witch. She didn't flinch. They needed a monster. He chuckled, low and bitter. They always do. A scream tore through the camp before anyone could answer. Gunfire followed. Tahsénte was out the door in a blur. Anna scrambled after him, the water cup still clutched in her hand, forgotten. Outside, chaos unraveled fast. Settlers pouring down the ridge, with rifles raised and eyes full of fire. One wore Clem's red bandana tied around his arm like a trophy. Bullets zipped past her ears. A tent collapsed in flames. The boy with a rusted rifle screamed and fired, his shot missing by a mile. Tahsénte returned fire. One shot, one settler down. Anna ducked behind a barrel. Her heartbeat thudded, so loud it drowned out the screaming. She saw a figure charging, face smeared with dirt, swinging a hatchet. Instinct took over. She grabbed a plank of wood, swung it hard, and felt it crack against bone. The man dropped. She didn't wait to see if he was dead. The air smelled of blood and powder. Dogs barked in the distance. One of the wagons exploded in flame. Tahsénte, she shouted. He was dragging a wounded child from a fire. His shoulder bled, dark and fast. Behind you, she screamed. He turned just as another settler rushed him. The rifle was empty, but the bayonet wasn't. The two men crashed to the ground. Anna ran forward, grabbed the rifle from the dirt, and pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. The settler laughed, until she swung the butt of the gun into his face. He dropped with a grunt. Tahsénte rolled to his feet, breathing heavy. Run, he barked. They bolted out the other side of the camp, through brush and bramble. Tahsénte's gait staggered. Blood poured from under his arm. They didn't stop until the campfires were specks, and the screams turned to echoes. Finally, in a dry creek shaded by cottonwoods, Anna forced him down. Let me see it. He shook his head. We don't have time. You're bleeding through your ribs, she snapped. We make time. She tore open his shirt. The gash was deep and angry, but clean. Not fatal, yet. She tore fabric from her own underskirt, tied it tight, pressed down with both hands. He didn't cry out, but his jaw clenched like a vice. Why did you go back for that child? She asked. He didn't answer. You're not just trying to save me, are you? She whispered. His eyes opened slowly. Every time I leave someone behind, they become her. Anna tied off the cloth with trembling fingers. You're going to live, but we need shelter. There's a mine, he said hoarsely. Old Silver Vein. A day's ride, less if we cut east. She helped him onto the horse, mounted behind him, and kicked hard. The trail was treacherous, but no longer unfamiliar. By dusk, the wind carried the scent of mineral earth. Jagged stones marked the entrance of the abandoned mine, half collapsed, forgotten by time. Inside, the air was cool and dry. The darkness welcomed them like a closing door. Anna lit a torch and guided Tahsénte into a shallow alcove. He leaned against the wall, eyes glassy. She worked quickly, cleansing the wound with water, packing it with crushed sage and salt, binding it again. Her hands no longer trembled. I killed someone, she said softly. Tahsénte looked at her. In the camp. I hit him, and he fell. I think he died. His expression didn't change. You saved your life. You saved mine. That doesn't make it easier. No, he said. It never does. She sat beside him, her back aching, her legs scraped and bruised. Her mind was quiet, not at peace, but not at war either. You knew the mine was here, she said after a while. He nodded. I've been here before. She waited. It was a hiding place once. During a raid. 5 of us made it. Only I walked out. Anna leaned her head against the wall. Why did you bring me here? Because you fight like someone who forgot how to be afraid. She turned to him, surprised. And because if we're going to end this, we need more than running. We need to make them choke on their own rage. Outside, a night bird called once and went silent. Anna stared into the darkness beyond the firelight. Her reflection in Tahsénte's eyes was no longer the girl who dangled from a noose. She was something else now. Still raw. Still unsure. But sharpening. We're not going to survive this, are we? She asked. He didn't lie. Maybe not. But we can make sure he doesn't either. Their eyes met. There was no ceremony in the oath that passed between them. No blood pact, no handshake. Just a shared silence, cold and final as steel. And beyond the cave walls, the trail still pulsed with blood. The dawn came red and ruthless. From the ridge above the canyon, Anna watched the sunrise tear across the sky like fire over oil, staining the clouds in bloodlight. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what she knew was coming. Tahsénte stood beside her, wrapped in his wolfskin cloak, the wind catching the frayed edge of his war paint. The wound beneath his ribs had turned stiff and angry, but he refused to show pain. They'd had one night to rest, one night to ready. Now, the reckoning rode fast behind the hills. Below them, the old Cheyenne outpost sprawled like a buried memory, half swallowed by time and brush. Walls of stone and timber had been mended hastily through the night. A handful of figures moved between the ruins, Cheyenne warriors, young and old, drawn by smoke signals and wordless calls that meant more than shouts ever could. Some had war paint. Others were the grief of old wounds like armor. They hadn't come for Anna. They had come for Tahsénte. And because Clem Raleigh had made it personal, Anna stepped forward and scanned the horizon, her heartbeat loud in her chest. You think he'll come today? He'll come now, Tahsénte said. He's afraid of what we become if he doesn't end it soon. She nodded. She understood. A lynching failed was dangerous. A girl survived was a story. But a girl who fought back, who helped stand a line, that was revolution. They had no time to linger in fear. Every hand was busy. She tied strips of cloth to bottles filled with kerosene and oil scavenged from the mine's old stores. She watched Tahsénte show a boy how to notch arrows for speed instead of distance. She moved between the others like she belonged, though the ache of not quite fitting never left her chest. But none of them looked at her with pity or suspicion, only recognition, as if they knew something about her she'd only just begun to see herself. The sun climbed. The wind died. Then the silence broke. Hoofbeats. Dozens. Dust rose along the far ridge like a promise kept. Anna felt it before she saw it, the thunder in the ground, the grim determination of a force that would not be reasoned with. Clem rode at the front, flanked by riders with torches and rifles, dogs straining at leashes. Their faces were tight with purpose. Clem wore a new coat, black leather, polished like a coffin. His beard was trimmed sharp, and his eyes glittered with hatred made holy. Tahsénte stepped forward. Let them come closer. They did. Clem raised a hand, and the riders halted just within rifle range. You made your point, Tahsénte, he shouted. You stole your girl, burned a camp, killed my men. Now I'm here to collect. Anna stepped beside Tahsénte, her voice clear and cold. Your men killed child. You burned people alive. You chased me because I wouldn't die quiet. Clem sneered. You were marked the moment you stood with them. I didn't stand with anyone, she said, until you gave me no choice. Clem's eyes shifted, calculating. He saw the fighters on the ridge now, the bows and rifles tucked behind rock and ruin. Still, he laughed. You think this makes you a warrior? He barked. You're a girl with dirt under her nails and a death wish. You think hiding behind a pack of savages makes you brave? Anna stepped forward, slowly. No, she said, but standing in front of them does. A beat passed. Then the first rifle cracked. Chaos broke like a wave. Gunfire tore through the outpost walls. Arrows screamed overhead. Riders charged, hooting like devils, flames already licking the tips of torches. Anna ducked behind a stone ledge, lit one of the fire bottles, and hurled it into the dry brush just ahead of the charge. Flames erupted, horses reared, men screamed. The scent of burning oil and gunpowder filled the air. Tahsénte moved like a shadow, fast, brutal, precise. His rifle barked, then became a club. A settler lunged with a bowie knife, but Tahsénte spun, caught the man's wrist, and drove his head into the stones. Blood sprayed. Anna fought beside a woman twice her age, who handed her a second pistol without words. She fired until her ears rang, then scrambled for cover, her skirts soaked in dust and sweat. A settler made it through the line and ran at her with a hatchet. She didn't think. She raised the pistol and fired. The man dropped, eyes wide, axe tumbling from his hand. Her breath hitched. But she didn't stop. Clem pushed through the fire line, his men fanning around him. He moved like a man who believed the world owed him obedience. And he aimed straight for the heart of it. Tahsénte saw him coming. Their eyes met, and the space between them folded into something ancient and final. They charged. Clem dismounted mid-motion, swinging a long knife from his hip. Tahsénte dropped his rifle and met him hand to hand, the blade singing as they clashed. Clem was strong, but Tahsénte was fury given form. They crashed into the dirt, rolling, fists breaking bone, blades tearing cloth and skin. Anna tried to reach them, but a settler blocked her path. She ducked a swing, drove her shoulder into his gut, and slammed the butt of the pistol into his jaw. When she looked up, Clem had Tahsénte on the ground, knife pressed to his throat. "You think saving her makes you a man?" Clem snarled. "You think it changes anything?" Tahsénte didn't flinch. "No," he rasped. "But it changed her." The blade plunged down. Anna screamed. But Tahsénte moved faster, grabbing Clem's wrist, twisting hard. The blade dropped. He kicked Clem off him and surged to his feet. Anna snatched a fallen knife and hurled it. It struck Clem's leg, deep. He fell, roaring. Tahsénte stood over him, chest heaving, blood staining his side. Clem reached for his pistol. Anna fired first. The shot echoed, sharp and clean. Clem stilled. Everything slowed. The riders that remained broke. Some fled. Others dropped their weapons and backed away, eyes wide. The battle didn't end with a cheer. It ended with silence, with smoke rising, with blood in the dirt and the taste of fire on the wind. Anna dropped to her knees beside Tahsénte. His hand found hers. "You did it," she whispered. "No," he said, breathing shallow. "We did." She smiled, though her face was streaked with soot and tears. Around them, the Cheyenne stood quietly, some injured, all changed. The dead were being gathered. The fire was being put out. The story was already being remembered. Later, much later, Anna stood alone at the edge of the ridge, watching the sun sink behind the hills. Her hair was wild, her hands scarred. Behind her, the survivors were rebuilding, not just the outpost, but something deeper. Tahsénte sat near the fire, his wounds bound, his eyes following her like a question he hadn't asked yet. She turned to face the dying light. "They'll come again," she said. "Yes," he replied. "But next time, they'll know someone is waiting." Anna nodded. "I used to think I was just a girl in the wrong place. Now I know I was in the only place that mattered." She walked toward the fire, into the circle of people who had once been strangers, now bound by blood and memory. And as the flames rose behind her, the narrator's voice settled in, quiet, steady, timeless. The West was not built by lawmen and steel alone. It was shaped by those who stood when silence demanded surrender. One girl with a noose around her neck. One warrior with ghosts in his eyes. Together, they turned the story on its head. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. There are more tales waiting to be told, stories of grit, justice, and the fire it takes to stand when others fall. The screen fades to black, but the dust never truly settles.